welcome to BloombergQuint. In an attempt to understand the state of the economy, we are continuing our series of conversations with states and finance ministers of states to understand what's the state of the economy closer to the ground and how it's impacting finances and governance at the state level. Joining us today on this series is Mr. Manpreet Singh Badal, Finance Minister of the state of Punjab. Sir, very good afternoon to you, and thanks so much for taking the time to speak to us. I am going to first start with a very broad question which we are putting to everyone we are speaking to, is to get your assessment of what you're seeing at the ground level, closer to the ground level in terms of the state of the economy in the state that you govern.
Well, my greetings to all your listeners from a very cold and a wet day in the capital city of Punjab. As far as the state of the economy is concerned, I think when the GST regime was launched in India, we were led to believe, and I'm not an expert either on the economy, and I'm not an economist personally, in fact I'm a historian, but we were led to believe that once GST regime comes into force, the GDP growth will rise by 2%, exports will become competitive, tax collections would actually rise, so on and so forth. And also that it will be, tax filing would be very, very easy. My own feeling sitting in Punjab is that they have actually got the design of the GST completely wrong. Tax collections are at an all-time low, lower than what was being collected 2.5 years back. GDP numbers have plunged. Filing tax return is even more cumbersome than it used to be. Our exports are not in competition. There is a general sense of gloom, at least as far as I read in the newspapers and what I hear in the business media. And I think this is a man-made disaster, and we could have done much better. So that's my short answer to your question.
So let me break that up into some parts, and I'll come to GST in a minute. But I do want to understand, for instance, you would be keeping track of the kind of tax collections that you're seeing that would be emanating from the kind of growth enterprises in your state are seeing. Is that far lower than what you had, say, budgeted for when you presented the budget for FY20?
Yes, it is almost 10 to 15% lower than what we had budgeted for. Not only in terms of tax we had budgeted from, but also grants from Government of India, and the devolution which is part of state share. And since they have cut the rate of corporate tax from 30% to 22%, I'm looking at another shortfall. Even though Punjab is a very, very small state, but almost 1,500 crores of less tax coming than what I had budgeted for.
Okay, so your starting fiscal deficit level was above 3% from what I saw in the budget documents, 3.4%. So what would you give me, can you give me a rough ballpark on where you think you may go under current conditions, sir?
Well, we will try and stick to fiscal FRBM parameters. But that would mean that there would be less spending, less growth for the state. If I can just remind your listeners that almost 60% of all welfare activities which are taken by governments are actually taken up by the state government. The state government is responsible for education. The state, they were also responsible for health. We are responsible for agriculture, running our canals. We are responsible for social security, policing, and so on and so forth. So, which literally means that if you have less money, then you have less money to spend on the welfare of the people, and also consequently the growth of the state. So we will try not to breach the fiscal parameters. We will try and stick within the boundaries. But it's sad that this would mean greater hardship to people.
We'll seek a little bit of a deeper response on spending patterns in the state in a minute. But sir, how much has the sort of compensation issue complicated your financial management? I think you have raised that quite vocally at some of the last few GST meetings. Has it eased up? The centre seems to have released some money.
Punjab is a unique state. Unique in the sense that our total economy is based on growing food grains and cereal crops for the Union of India. Even though we are less than 1.5% of India's landmass, we produce almost 35% of all of surpluses for the Food Corporation of India. So when the GST came into being, and we were told that it was in the highest interest of India that taxes, we used to tax food grains, that these would have to go. In a GST regime, you cannot tax every state, somebody's taxing coal and somebody's taxing iron ore or oil or food grains. All this has to go, but it is in the highest interest of India. So Punjab actually lost almost 1/4 of its entire tax base because in taxes were subsumed. So but we were assured that for 5 years we would be compensated for that. So I was not actually expecting that this compensation is going to stop in the year 2019 or 20. So government of India today owes us almost 6,000 crores on account of compensation and arrears of compensation. So for a very small state, not having access to 6,000 crores, which actually belongs to us, which should have constitutionally been paid to the state of Punjab, it makes my cash position very, very difficult. My borrowings have gone up. Last month I had to stagger the salaries of my employees, so on and so forth. I think this is a serious issue. We tried to raise it with the Union FM. We were not given a very satisfactory reply. But my own feeling, and I hope I'm not being very harsh, is that not being able to get paid in time is almost amounts to a sovereign default. This is a constitutional obligation. We had trusted the Union of India when we subsumed our taxes, when we surrendered our financial sovereignty to Government of India, but not being able to being paid on time and not even being given a satisfactory answer, I think that's unfair.
Sure, and that point is very well taken, and you made it strongly. Yet, sir, it would be unfair to lay the entire burden at the centre's door, particularly for your state. There is large revenue expenditure on account of subsidies. You don't need me to tell you that the power subsidies, the farm loan waivers have added to your financial pressures, sir. Have you in many ways done a little bit of self-inflicted damage, sir?
Well, we have actually raised this issue with Government of India many times. If Punjab continues to be, or if they continue us to be the food basket of India, then agriculture is not something which will be a very profitable business to be in. Agricultural production has to be subsidized. In fact, we are subsidizing this. We don't consume these cereal crops. And I don't know why Punjab should be subsidizing these crops. And we would be very happy to actually try and move out of agriculture, diversify our economy into something else. But that is a call which we in Punjab are not in a position to take. But if the Government of India feels that Punjab should opt out of food production, then we will be very happy to look at other forms of, whether it's to try and industrialize this state very quickly or try and get some kind of a serviced industry base. But we are told again and again that food security is as important as national security. God forbid there was a harvest failure in Punjab or any other part of India. Even if you had money in your pocket, there are not enough food stocks floating around in the world to be able to feed 1.25 billion people. So that is a call which Government of India has to take. If they want that, we should opt out of agriculture, Punjab could actually think about doing so. But if we have to do agriculture, then some sort of subsidies will have to be provided to farmers. Our annual subsidy bill for agricultural power is about 6,500 crores. If we were to burden the farmers 6,500 crores in terms of electricity bills, that would be almost 15% of the entire value of the food crops. I don't think so Punjab farmers would be able to successfully engage in agriculture if the costs were to be increased by 15%.
So
and I'm sorry I'm being a little long-winded with my answers.
No, not at all, but I'm curious. So you're hinting to some sort of government support for this. Can you not? There were some reports suggesting that you may take away subsidy for the large farmers. That's the power subsidy. Are you actively considering that, sir?
Well, as someone who anxiously and every day reflects on the future of Punjab, this is certainly, this is an exercise which we engage in every month, but removing subsidies from the farmers of Punjab is almost like the Kashmir question. We can debate it and all, but it's very difficult to settle it with such a large population engaged in agriculture and very successful agriculture. I'm not sure very many governments would have the political guts to actually deal with the fallout of this decision.
Understood. So to go back to the point that you were making earlier on, looking at small savings in a time like this, can you tell us how you're prioritizing expenditure? Are you cutting expenditure compared to what you had budgeted at the start of the year?
Yes, we are, and most of the cuts, you can't make any cuts in salaries or pensions or, your committed expenses in terms of servicing debt. So most of the budgetary cuts would come either in form of new projects which the state has to undertake, whether it is building, new roads or infrastructure or electricity and so on and so forth. So those are the cuts. And especially in our irrigation systems, universities. So these are the first cuts which come in place. Punjab, we can ill afford it, but there we are. We're living in hard times. So we are cutting down on our expenditure, certainly.
More longer term, sir, can you give us a sense of how you're tackling the state's debt burden? You're almost at 40% of GSDP, which is among the highest across states. There are people who fear that Punjab is in virtually a fiscal crisis. How are you strategizing on debt, sir, and your plans ahead?
Well, ever since the Congress government came into being about almost now 3 years, we laid out a very attractive industrial policy. We're trying to get investments in Punjab and trying to increase the GSDP of the state. I'm very happy to report to your listeners that in the last 3 years, almost 55,000 crores of investments have actually been grounded in the state of Punjab. And it's something we know, it's getting a momentum of its own. And I'm sure in the next couple of years, this is certainly going to rise very significantly. If we can achieve that, then I think the state finances would also be in control. And as I said, even somebody who's selling bananas in front of a bus stop, he would give you an answer that, and if he has to manage his house, he will either cut down on his expenses or he would try and raise his income. But in Punjab's case, we are doing both. We've cut down very drastically on our expenses. We have raised our revenues quite significantly. Investments are coming in place. If I can remind your listeners that one of the reasons why Punjab never, mounted a very serious public relations exercise in trying to get investments, apart from the fact that it was almost a national duty that we had to grow food grains for the country. But also, we had to suffer almost a decade of, external terrorism, which was foisted on Punjab, which completely devastated Punjab for about 12 years. But no sooner had we come out of this, and Punjab is probably the only state in the world, or only region in the world, which actually successfully eliminated terrorism, from its roots. That this was again an ill-conceived idea of Government of India, where they gave special income tax and tax concessions, excise concessions to our immediate neighbors, which is Jammu and Kashmir, Himachal and Uttarakhand. You just had to walk across 10 meters into Kashmir or Himachal Pradesh, and you could set up an industry there, and for the next 10 years you had to pay no income tax or excise and all sort of thing. And no sooner has the sunset clause been added to that this whole GST and demonetization. So I think fate has been a little cruel to Punjab. I don't want to be cribbing. We were the only state, apart from Bengal, which was divided in 1947. We were the frontline state which faced 3 wars in 62, 65 and 71. So every decade there is something which puts some kind of an impediment to our economic growth. But given about 10 years of peace, like from 47 to say 62, we had built the Bhakra Dam, we had built Chandigarh, we had built the Punjab Agriculture University, engineering colleges and so on and so forth. And similarly, we just got a decade of peace in the 70s, where Punjab was the #1 state of India. But I can assure your listeners that whatever it takes, Punjab is going to be progressed, willingly if possible, but kicking and screaming if required. And we in Punjab, it's not only about finances, it's not about the economy. We are actually fighting for a pride. For the last 5,000 years, Punjab has been a beacon of light for the rest of India. We have never run a race in the middle. We don't know how to run a race in the middle. I always keep joking with my colleagues that Punjab will either be a Japan or an Afghanistan, because we don't know how to run the race in the middle. And I can assure you that we will be Japan. I will not shirk my responsibility, and I'm not willing to exchange places with any other person.
That's very well put, sir. I have one last question for you, though. I think we've already seen the strife between the center and states on the GST issue. It seems like there is one other potential battle brewing, and that's on the Finance Commission's recommendations, which may come through in the budget. Are you, like many other states, fearing that they would get the short end of the stick once the Finance Commission gives its recommendations?
Well, I haven't, I don't have access to this report. I'm waiting for it anxiously, because the future of my state and the people of Punjab depends on it. But my grievance is not against the center, but all I'm, whether it's Punjab or every other state of India. What is India? India is actually a sum total of its states. All I'm saying is that, India deserves better. We could have designed this GST better. And if there are hard times, we will go with the hard times. But my grievance is that somehow India could have done better. There was, I feel, and I'm not saying it out of any political, backbiting or something. I feel there was a certain amount of arrogance in the Government of India that they knew best, how to run, and they did not have a ear to the ground. They did not consult the stakeholders, which were the states. we just went along with it. And the way they've handled the Indian economy in the last you can't be running a modern state with knee-jerk reactions. If there's a Gujarat election, you bring the rates down and so on and so forth. So I hope better sense prevails on all of us, including me.
It's a good note to leave it on. Thank you, Mr. Badal. Very kind of you to spend time speaking to us and sharing your perspective on what you're seeing in your state.
Thank you very much for inviting me. And as every Punjabi, I'm very happy to be seen on television or see my name in the print. So thank you again.
Thanks. Bye-bye.